that's what I did. And one of the things that we learned at the course was that one of the most important resources that you can get in which we learn in NLP is about the ability or to trust the ability that you have to be confident. And that's one of the things that we learn in the course is about being confident and about how to access that resource when you need it. And that's our next speaker. That's Dr. Steve Simpson, who's going to come on stage in a minute, and he's going to tell us about confidence. Now, I did the trainer training with, we were actually talking about it because when I did my trainer training, I did it with Michelle, with Lloydie, and Dr. Steve, amongst many others. And it's funny how things, I actually did my training here. I was in this room practicing and doing stuff on the master prac. So I did my training with Dr. Steve, and I remember I instantly liked him. He's a kind of a guy that, he always comes across very warm, very genuine, very wise. And I'm going to have to read some of the stuff that he's gone through his life because I couldn't memorize it, I'm sorry. I would probably leave a lot of very important facts and details. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Dr. Steve is and his experience in life and in the world. Dr. Steve has lived in the war-torn Angola, in the swamps of Nigeria. He's lived, he's been in the steppes of Kazakhstan and the deserts of Oman. During these exciting times, he was mugged, imprisoned, shot, nearly died in a helicopter accident. He experienced near-fatal death with malaria, the less serious dengue, dysentery, and the dubious delights of tumbu infection, which I hope he does tell us about. So he does say that confidence is the second most important resource. First being luck, obviously, because he's obviously had a lot of bloody luck. So he changed his careers very late in life, and he's a very, very nice guy. I mean, as him and many other of the trainers, they've all created and developed their own products and, and CDs and DVDs and downloads and books. And Dr. Steve has actually been one of the best sellers in Amazon for the last couple of years. So a big round of applause for Dr. Steve Simpson.
Yeah, the first most important quality you can have is luck. Now, I don't have a lot of time to talk about luck today, but I'll just plant one little seed. A lot of people say in life, and you've probably heard this expression, that you make your own luck. Well, you may not make as much luck always as you want, but you can certainly do something. And the other thing that I have learnt, often the hard way, is that the second most important resource to have is confidence. Because if you don't have confidence, life becomes very tough for anything you want to do, right? Yeah. Now, what gets in the way of confidence, and Ed and Michelle have alluded to it already, is that we put our attention in a place which is not the best place to have it. A lot of people put their attention in the past, things that have happened in the past. And generally speaking, is it the good things that we remember or the bad? Yeah, almost. I could tell just by your body language and the murmuring that was going on. Most people, or probably almost all of us, have a great memory at all of the things that have gone bad. And we gloss over and forget the good stuff. Because every single person in this room has done some good stuff. And I'm not going to ask you to do this exercise now, but if I have more time when I work with people, I ask them to quickly write down or tell me 5 bad things that have happened to them this day or yesterday, the last 2 days. And it doesn't take them very long. And then I say, okay, now think of 5 good things that have happened, and it takes a lot longer. Now, we've got our brains completely the wrong way around. And I warn you right now that in about 5 minutes' time, I'm going to be talking about neurophysiology in excruciating detail. But there's also some good news about it. So there we are, living in the past. People who live in the past too much, especially if their thoughts dwell on all the stuff that has gone wrong, we call those people depressed, or they certainly can get depressed. And if they carry on being depressed for too long, they get chronically depressed. And then they, need to take pills or CBT or whatever, And it's a serious problem. It's a serious problem for them, and it's a serious problem for the people they live with. And you're nodding, so you've got some sort of resonance with this. Not personal? Are you a person who looks back in the past? No. No, good. I'm glad you're not, Richard. That's why you're smiling, because that certainly gets in the way of the smiles. But then there's the other people that we've talked about, and these are sometimes the what-if people who are looking forward to the future. They're thinking of all the things that are going to happen in the future. And once again, are they thinking of all of the good things that are going to happen to them, or all of the scary things out there that might happen? And everybody's nodding again. So you see, we've all got it completely wrong. And so there's only one place where we really should be putting all of our attention, and it is right now. Because that's the only thing we can control right now. I have no control over the stuff that happened in the past. I'm lucky that I got away with some of that stuff, as you've just heard. That was the condensed version, by the way. Anybody know what tumbu infection is? I thought there might be one person here. If you go to West Africa, any of you have been to West Africa or come from West Africa? You people might know it by a different name. But there's a fly that lays its eggs on clothing on the washing line. And when you put your shirt on or your trousers, the little eggs that the fly has laid its eggs, they hatch and become little tiny things that get underneath the skin. And then over the period of about the next month or 6 weeks, these little tiny things grow to a maggot about that big. And I had one on my thigh, and even as I'm describing it now, I can feel the scratching as this thing... I said this morning I wasn't going to tell this story, but Bernardo did ask me. And then I thought, when am I speaking? Just before lunch. Anyway, you can't, if you try and get the tumbu out, you won't get it out. It's got claws. I know that because I put mine under the microscope. What you have to do, you have to be very patient, and you just have to let it give birth to itself when it's ready, after about a month. And when it does, the skin heals up miraculously within 24 hours if nothing had ever been there. Anyway, how on earth did we get talking about tumbu fly? Yes, living in the present. We can't control the past. Can we control the future? No. So why do some of you people, maybe all of you, why do you worry about stuff that might happen tomorrow when you can't even control what's going to happen 5 minutes from now? But we all do, don't we? Mark Twain said, roughly speaking, if I can remember, he said, I have spent 80% of my life worrying about stuff that's going to happen in the future, of which about 1% actually did. Now, when you're getting on and on in life, and you're looking back, you're going to think, gosh, why didn't I use all of that time, for doing more cool stuff? So there's one little message: live in the moment. How do we do it? Well, by being confident. That's one way to do it, by not worrying about the past too much, by not worrying about the future too much. In the next 50 minutes, however long I have, I'm going to give you some easy stuff to take away right now. There's no point me confusing yourself, confusing myself, giving you stuff that might work or may not work. I'm going to give you some really simple stuff that I know from experience of talking to groups of people that it will work right away if you want it to. And it will get better the more you do it. And as Michelle said, there's something about this magic 28 days. If you can make a change in your life for 28 days, the chances are it'll stick. If you just do something today and tomorrow and think you're a new person, it won't, because you'll go back to the person you were before you walked in here earlier this morning. As Ed would say, does that make sense? I think so. So, do you think that it's possible that you can learn in the next 45 minutes something that will make you more confident when you're giving a presentation in front of your bosses or your customers? Yeah, you think it's possible. Do you think it's possible that you will be able to learn something that you can take into a difficult meeting with your boss or a fellow employee, to talk about a difficult subject, like their poor performance or how your boss is bullying you or whatever? Yeah. Is it possible? Is it possible? I mean, we're living in an uncertain world now, especially those of you who are in business, and probably all of you are in one way or another. Is it possible that you will be able to look at a situation and to make skillful decisions that are likely to be more successful and position you for the future, whatever the future brings us? Is it possible? Yeah. Well, of course, all of these things are. And one of the reasons why is because I used a particular word in the questions that I asked you. Can you remember what it was? I used the same word in every question. Is it possible? Possible is a power word. You know, I've looked on the internet and there's a whole list of power words like inspirational, motivational, engaging, explosive. I haven't seen the word possible there. But to me, it's the most powerful word there is. Because what is the opposite of possible? I said it. Yes, I gave you a clue there. Exactly, impossible. Now, once you start using that word impossible, you know, this project, this deadline you have given me is impossible, what's going to happen? It's not going to happen. You've already predicted it. You have joined the prediction club, which is one of the most powerful forces for predicting the future that there is. Because if you say something is going to happen, it probably will. And if you say something is impossible, it probably will be impossible. If you use the possible word, then, of course, everything changes. Now, I did say that I was going to give you a very, in the next 45 minutes, I was going to talk about the way our brains work in excruciating detail. Is that okay? Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I've got 2 minutes, so I'm going to have to make it real simple. You're okay for that, Richard, aren't you? Real simple. Now, all of you can leave this room an expert in the way our brain works. Because, as they say on Star Trek, the brain is the final frontier, the last frontier, where no man boldly wants to go. Because the scientists may pontificate and win Nobel Prizes for how the brain works, and certainly they have done fantastic work, but it's a fraction. We actually don't know. In fact, when you look at nature, we actually don't know much about anything. But where the brain is concerned, we know almost nothing. A question. Do we have any schizophrenics in the room at the moment? We have 2. I won't identify them by name, but they are either the honest ones or the ones with the most insight. Because the answer to this question, and in NLP, usually there are not any right or wrong answers, but this is probably a right answer. The truth is that we're all schizophrenics, to an extent. What does the word schizophrenic mean, or schizophrenia? It's a medical word originally. Anybody? I don't need a dictionary definition, just a rough, what you would read in. Sorry? Is it a multi-personality? Multi-personality? Yes, it is. It is multiple. Can you be more specific about multiple? Sorry? Fantasy, yes. Visualization, yeah. So, I mean, all of these things are quite correct, but just looking at the word, again, I said we're going to be pedantic about words. That is part of NLP. That's the linguistic part. Schizophrenic, when you look into the derivation, schizo, schizoid, schism, that means split. And phrenia, I think, means the brain. So it means somebody with a split mind. And I think you said multiple personality. Typically, I think they mean 2 personalities. And this word has been replaced with bipolar, which, of course, does mean 2. So we are schizophrenic because we have at least 2 parts of our brain that are working all the time. We have what Freud and all the people who followed Freud called the conscious mind, and then we have what he called the unconscious mind, or some people call the subconscious mind, or some people call it the autonomic mind. You've heard those kind of expressions before, right? That's as difficult as it gets. Which do you think is the biggest, the conscious or the unconscious? The conscious, the unconscious. Would anybody not agree with that? Who thinks the conscious is the biggest? Well, again, there's no right or wrong answers, but I tend to think that all of you are right. And that would have been my answer as well. The unconscious mind is much more powerful. But going back to the Pink Floyd intro, which part of our brain did our teachers and our parents and all of the authority figures, which have they been working on us with? The conscious, yeah. I mean, do you think babies are born asking what if, what if, what if? They're not, are they? Do you think babies are born with a lack of confidence? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think so. I mean, I see babies on planes and things, and they're looking around with those big eyes, and they're not worried about anything. They're not looking at a third eye or a forehead. They are drilling into this other interesting person that they're seeing in this wonderful world they've gone into. So yeah, and NLP to me my definition of NLP is it gives you easy ways to get into that unconscious mind. Because believe me, the gifts and benefits that you will get from tapping more into your unconscious mind will be a lot bigger than tapping into your conscious mind, even if you could. Yeah? Right, so we've agreed we're all schizophrenics, and I said I'd make things easy, and now I'm going to make them hard again. Because we don't just have two brains. We probably have 1 million. So you were right, weren't you? You said multiple. Well, 1 million. In fact, we may have more than 1 million. And that is why people can be both so interesting and so frustrating. Because the same person can make a completely different decision one day to the one he made or she made the day before. That's why when we read the newspapers, these famous people who are known as being very sensible do the most stupid things. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they've got a parliament of 1 million voices in their head, and the loudest voice is the one they follow at that moment. And a bit closer to home, we've had these dreadful riots in London. Now, there were some pretty sensible people, from what I've heard, that were involved in those, doing the most crazy things. Because that part of their brain, for one reason or another, had the loudest voice on that day. And, I'm not an expert on the legal system, but I just can't think that it makes any sense sending people like that to jail for 6 months when our prisons are full already. Now, I know they've done harm to people who run businesses, and all that's got to get taken care of. But, in my personal opinion, they need to learn a little more how to control their brain so that some of these unruly bits, they get some control over. Anyway, I'm off the subject there now. So there we are. I know it's confidence. I got 3 rules. Schizophrenia. Remember, we're all schizophrenics. It's okay. The only difference between, medical schizophrenia and our multiple personalities is this element of control. Somebody said schizophrenics have high visualization skills. They do. They have lots of inputs into their brain, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and sadly, they don't have a lot of control over it, which is why they give them drugs and all this other kind of stuff. Fortunately, most of us, we can control, to some extent, what's going on in here. And that's what this whole day is about. If we can just control this much that's going on in our unconscious mind, we're going to be a lot better off than we were yesterday when we could only control that much. So I've come up with 3 secret laws or 3 quantum rules or whatever you want to call them. 3 is about the most number that people can think of at any one time. We have the 10 commandments, and people can probably remember 10, but 3 is easier to remember. And the first one, it alludes to what Ed was saying earlier on, when Ed said, this inner voice. Is that what he called it? Some people call it self-talk. They call it internal dialogue. But I remember earlier this morning, we all agreed that we do have this inner voice. And just like when I asked you to remember all the good things that have happened to you, it's usually critical. Now, who put that voice in your head? Was it a voice you were born with? I told you this would be a mistake. I mean, do babies think that as they're taking their first breath? No. So where did that voice come from? Was it an infection that we picked up? It came from experiences. Yeah, we remember stuff that went wrong because, looking back, some of that stuff that went wrong, if we hadn't been a bit lucky, it could have been nasty. So yeah, that's true. And then I think the gentleman next to you said parents. Yeah, parents. Because parents are conditioned to be protective of their child. And parents have been around a long time. And they've seen all the bad stuff that can happen. So parents tend to be overprotective. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it's just the way that it is. But as we become adults, I think we have to accept that overprotection for what it was and just trust ourselves a little more so that, this voice gets, doesn't have such a prominent voice in our parliament. Now, I do a lot of work with golfers, and because golf is a pretty, 5 hours it takes, and the ball's not moving, it can be pretty dull, and way too much time for thinking, this voice is very dominant in a golfer's mind. And there's one of my clients who came up with a brilliant idea, and I wish it was mine, but it was his. And he said, I have my inner voice which tells me what club to use and what kind of shot to make, But then I don't want to hear anything else, because then he reminds me the last time I played this shot and where the ball ended up and the terrible score and the embarrassment that I ended up with. So I give him a job. I tell him to get out of my head, to go down about 200 yards away and be a ball spotter and tell me where my ball lands. And I thought, fantastic. But you see, all of us have got similar situations in our life. And we can use things like that for ball spotting or for whatever else, you know, checking out the hazards underneath the ladder or whatever. And that, to me, is another beautiful thing about NLP. You can use it, as the other speakers have said, you can use it for whatever you want to use it for. You can use it in business, which presumably is what most of us are here for today, but you can use the same stuff in your personal life. You can use the same stuff for communicating with your children better, or your friends, or your family. You can use the same life, that you can use the same tools for being better at your hobbies and your sports. It doesn't matter. You see, I'm a doctor, but I use NLP in all kinds of different ways. You know, I use it in golf, for goodness sake, and for more serious things of dealing with people with these psychological issues and stuff. And just, you know, to give you an example, I've written a book about golf, which has been pretty successful for golfers. But the crazy thing is, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't believed this possible word, yesterday on Amazon, it was #1 in the alternative and holistic medicine section, a book about golf. In the States, it has been #1 for most of this year in the hypnotherapy section. So who's buying this golf book? I mean, they can't all be golfers, can they? But it just shows, you know, that somebody has said, oh, you should read this book, it's got some good stuff in. Well, I don't know whether it's got good stuff or not, but I mean, I'm telling you, that's the people that are buying it. Anyway, the first secret rule is about this self-talk. And I'm not going to repeat the stuff that Ed said, so I'm going to give you something else. Because the idea is, we're going to give you as much stuff today as we can, and you're going to go away and use whatever appeals to you. But the way that I advise people to look upon this self-critique is to say this one sentence, and I'll say it to you now. Listen very carefully, because I might ask you to repeat it. And if anybody should get a single word wrong, I will send them to Bernardo. No, I will send them to Michelle with that big stick. From this moment forwards, I will never, ever say a bad word about myself ever again. Does that sound sensible? Yeah? Can you do it? No. Somebody said no. Somebody said yes. How many can do that? A few brave hands go up. How many? Some of you are just thinking about it. That's okay. And how many are pretty certain you can't do it? Just 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who had their hand up just back here? Somebody here? Lady? Yeah? Okay. Now, come on. This was a simple sentence. Tell me, if you don't mind, why it will not work for you, or why you will not be able to do it.
I set really high standards for myself, and I always think that you can learn from your mistakes and you can critique yourself and develop from that. So I don't remember, and I don't necessarily think that's being bad or negative about yourself, but you're not saying, oh, yay me, and I've done something you can improve on. So I don't think anyone can ever truly say. It's a little bit arrogant as well to use 100%.
Yeah. What is your name?
Joe.
Joe. That is a really good answer, Joe. And it's very rare in these, I always ask this question in these sessions, and it's very rare that I get it explained as well as that. The only other time that I've had such a good explanation, when I was talking to some junior golfers, and they said exactly the same thing. They said, we're going to look arrogant. And they actually went further. They said, you know, our friends will not like us. And I do take that point, and that's why I asked the question. But how I would reframe that is, it is true, we learn from our mistakes, definitely. Making mistakes actually is very important in our development. And if you're going to live in the comfort zone, you're going to have a comfortable life, but you're not going to achieve a fraction of what you could if you were a little braver, a little more confident. But what I would say to Jo, to her very good answer there, the point that she raised, is that what did I say was the biggest part of our brain a few minutes ago? Our unconscious mind. Do you think our unconscious mind can easily forget a mistake we've made and not take some future learning from it? No, I don't think so. I think our unconscious mind will know. Just in case I'm wrong, I'll put a health warning here. I think it is good to have honest, self-analytical critique and to say, yeah, I screwed up. I did this. Why I didn't do that, I will not know, but I will not do it again. And then let it go. Then let it go. Will you be able to let it go more easily?
Yes. I think you have to forgive yourself, don't you?
Forgive yourself. It's all about forgiveness. It's not even forgiving, it's acceptance. Accepting ourselves for what we are. We're all pretty dumb. We all do pretty dumb things, don't we? But hopefully we also get some good stuff right. And using some of this NLP stuff, helps us move in that direction. Actually, I think people do lots of things really, really well, but they just don't give themselves enough credit for it. But anyway, my point is, let's beat ourselves up disproportionately with the stuff that goes wrong. So, follow me. From this moment forward, I want to hear you say it, because speaking is part of it. From this moment forward, I will never, ever say a bad thing about myself. Don't say this, so I'm adding a bit now. And for Joe, and for the juniors in the golfing section, and probably for all of us, I'm going to add a little bit. Because I can be sure to the bottom of my boots that my friends, relatives, and the rest of the world will tell me when I've screwed up. Okay, Joe? That is rule number 1. Rule number 2. I call that talk tender, by the way. You can call it whatever you like. Call it don't beating myself up. I've had enough. Yes. No, that was point 1. That was talk tender. Sorry, that's my first rule. Don't worry, talk to me after if I've lost you, because I've talked about a lot of stuff, I know. Rule number 2 is create confidently. And it's other ways to be confident. Believe me, if you follow rule 1 and just do nothing, that was going to make you feel a lot more confident. But the second rule I call create confidently. But again, you can call it whatever you want. Now, both of our previous speakers, they've talked about ways to be confident when you're making a presentation. They've talked about little tricks you can do. And I could talk for a whole day on this particular rule of confidence. But I don't have time, so I'm just going to give you a couple of things. Now, I implored Michelle this morning. I said, look, some of our talk is going to overlap. Please do not mention the dentist. Now, this is NLP. This is something we know in NLP. If you ask somebody not to do something, the brain never hears the not. Just like children never hear the not. So don't waste your time telling kids not to do stuff. It doesn't work. Am I right? Yeah. Thank you. You're right. So the reason I use the dentist is because I also want to talk about posture, but from a slightly different perspective. And to make a point, because that's the point is the important thing. And for this, I need a volunteer. Now, I don't want somebody who is full of confidence and used to being on stage. I want somebody like the people that we've had earlier today that were really good, who, to be quite honest, are already feeling a few little butterflies because they know that if I don't get a volunteer, I'm going to pick somebody. So I want somebody who's a little nervous, but who trusts me, that no harm will come to you. Trust me, I'm a doctor. Do I have a volunteer who fits into that category? Thank you, sir. Please. Hi, John.
Hi.
How are you feeling now?
A bit nervous.
Turn around, because you've got to see don't look at their third eye. I want you to look in their eyes. And there's a camera there. Stare into the camera also. How are you feeling now?
Still the same, but not too bad.
Not too bad. Okay. Now, the reason why I mentioned you can look at me now.
Right.
The reason I mentioned the dentist is because most of us in this country, if you were sitting in a chair waiting to go into a dentist surgery, would you be nervous?
Yeah.
Would most people in this room be? Some not. You see, I made a mistake. I gave this presentation a little while ago in Portugal, and I talked about dentists, and I said, would you feel nervous? Nobody in the whole room felt nervous. It's a cultural thing. And so I had to rewrite my script on in the moment, because they actually like going to the dentist in Portugal. But most of us in this country, of our sort of ages, we've had some bad experiences, and they linger, don't they? Have you had a bad time with a dentist?
Yeah, a bit, not too bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Have you had a root filling?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they push those things right up inside your nose. Why are you smiling?
Yeah.
Okay, now I want you to be an actor.
Right.
This is your chance to be a famous actor. You never know where this movie might end up, by the way, so give it your best shot.
Okay.
I want you to adopt the posture of somebody who is standing in the corridor outside the... You're with me, aren't you?
You're right, okay.
Outside the dentist's office, who's going to have 3 triple root fillings up the back of the nose. Adopt the posture so that we can see you.
All right.
I'm liking it so far. I'm liking it, but it's whether the audience like it that counts. So we're looking at John. Now, what are we noticing? He's doing a great job, by the way. Now, what are we seeing in his posture? He's slumped. Yeah, naughty boy. Yeah, what else? Looking down. Why do you think he's slumped? Yeah, he's nervous. Yeah, who said that? Protecting. Yeah, please carry on.
Because his arms are starting to come forward. It's as though he's
Yeah. 1,000,000 years of evolution has gone into this posture. He's basically protecting the bits that he regards as his most valuable. Your heart, isn't it? So yeah, so he's slumped, his head was down, and what else can you notice? Anything else? His legs are forward, yeah. Beep, 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 beep. He's got a grimace, yeah, good. His pulse is going fast, I've just felt it. You may not see, but his breathing is slightly faster. And one of the dangers of being a hypnotist is that people sometimes listen too much. And so he also has an urge to go to the bathroom, which he's controlling, aren't you? And the reason why I know all this... The reason I know all this is because when people are nervous, they have this chemical flying around their blood called adrenaline. And that's why he's adopting a protective thing. Because if a tiger was to come jumping into this room now, you would adopt the same thing. You'd get a surge of adrenaline, and they call it fight or flight. So in a microsecond, he has to decide, is he going to fight this tiger, or is he going to run faster than Usain Bolt without a false start? And that's what the adrenaline is for. But you see, it's no use right now, and it's no use when I'm on stage being nervous, because nobody's going to kill me. But it's very bad for my body because it's releasing sugar and fats and things that are clogging up my arteries. And if I have lived my whole life being nervous, I'm going to be more likely to have a heart attack, a stroke, suffer from anxiety and depression, and be very sad and boring. That's what adrenaline does to you. So that is another great beauty of confidence, because by being more confident, you are affecting your brain chemicals and the chemicals that go around, and you're being more healthy. Now, you're such a good actor, normally I'd get a second subject for this, but I want to hang on to you a bit longer. I want you now to adopt a very confident posture. You are on a well-known satellite news program, and you are no script. You're totally in control of the situation. Very nice. What are we seeing now? What are you seeing that you can makes him look confident? Yeah. He's smiling. His pulse has dropped. Color. Frightened people go a pale color. So there's a little more rose in his cheeks now. He's breathing more slowly. But the most important thing, John, is how do you feel now?
Yeah, I feel better.
Yeah.
I feel more relaxed. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can feel my pulse isn't as
Yeah.
fast. Yeah.
And that is my point to you. That is the point of this demonstration. I mentioned we got no control over the past, no control over the future, but we do have control over the present. And John has used it. John doesn't like being on stage here. If nobody was listening, I would say the same thing myself. But it's my job. It's not John's job. But he's learned how to handle it. And the thing is, what do you do for your job, John?
Part of my job will involve
Presentations.
Standing in front of people, so
Yeah.
it's a new role I'm not used to yet, and it does fill me with fear.
Yeah. Well, you're going to take something from today because it's not as scary as you thought.
Yeah.
Because you're running the what-ifs of your next future presentations at work. Believe me, I'll tell you something. I lived in the corporate world for quite a while. Nobody is listening to a word you say.
Yeah.
They're not. They're not. They're not. They're thinking of what clever thing can I say next that the boss will notice. Because that's what people are. Yeah. As Dale Carnegie said, the reason why people are so difficult is that they don't think on logic, they think on emotions. We're all like that. So there you are, there's the confident person, and so there's some tricks, because you can fool your body. If you put your body in a confident posture, you will feel it. It's the physiology. If you put yourself into a nervous place, that's going to affect your body as well. So the scientists will say you can't control things like that, but you can. We've just seen it. Thank you very much, John.
you.
Good luck. Rule number 3. I shouldn't call them rules, should I? Suggestions. Subtle suggestions. I call this one make magic movies. I like the word magic because there's a lot of magic in our world that we take for granted. And I make movies because we can all be our own movie director. And I use the word make because we're in control. We can make whatever movies we want in our head. It's only limited by our imagination. Now, when I'm talking to self-development people, we call this, entering into hypnotic states or trance states. When I'm talking to sports people, they're not interested in that kind of mumbo-jumbo. I say we're practicing visualization exercises. And when I'm with distinguished corporate people like yourselves, business leaders of the present and definitely the future, I say, this next bit is about strategic planning. But it's a closed-eye strategic planning session. Now, I've got an exercise that we're going to do as a group. But first of all, I have to load you with some information. I want you to put your books and things on the floor. And obviously sit comfortably. Don't cross your legs. That interferes with the chakras and the chai and blood and who knows what else. What else do I want you to do? I want Graham to play some nice music if you have some by any chance, Graham. And I want you to hold your hands roughly in front of you like I'm holding now. And again, they've got to be comfortable because you're going to be in this posture for about 3 minutes. Okay, Michelle, can you do this one? Yeah, you got it. You got it. So we've all got our hands like that? Okay. Now you can close your eyes. And all I want you to think about right now is absolutely nothing. But of course, our brains aren't made like that. It's impossible to think of nothing. But if we can't think of nothing, we can control what we do want to think about. And I'm going to paint a little picture for you now. And of course, 40% of your brain, one way or another, is connected with pictures and visualization. A friend has asked you to take her to the hospital. She has to collect a result or something simple like that. She hasn't got a car. So you say, yes, of course. So you drive her to the hospital, you park the car, and you sit yourself quietly down in outpatient's department while your friend goes away to collect her blood result or whatever it might be. And you've only been there about 5 minutes. And already you're starting to get a bit bored. And you're looking around. And then you see a nurse walking towards you. And she's carrying something. It's too far away to see what it is. But as she gets closer, you see that she's carrying a blanket. And inside the blanket is a baby. And you can tell from looking at the baby that it's only just been born. And she comes to you and says, please will you help me? I just want you to hold this baby for a moment. And she places the baby in your hand. And she says, thank you. I'll be back very shortly. The baby is fine and healthy. Just look after it carefully. Hold it gently, but also firmly enough so that baby doesn't fall on the floor. And the final thing she says as she's walking away, she looks over her shoulder. She said, when babies are born, they're very cold. I want you to hold this baby, and I want you to keep the baby warm. And using your imagination and your visualization, I want you to keep that baby warm right now. I want you to feel the warmth in your hands, transmitting through the blanket to the baby. And just feel what it feels like. Feel what that warmth feels like. Feel what the baby feels like. And if you want to move your hands in a different position, you can do that as well. Whatever is going to keep baby warm. Okay, now I want you to come back to the room now. Keep your eyes closed, keep holding on to baby. But now be more aware of the noises that you can hear inside this room. That's one way of staying in the present. Thinking how many different noises you can hear. And then when you're ready, just open your eyes. Open your eyes whenever you're ready now. And rest your hands. Because the nurse has come and she's taken the baby and she says, thank you very much. You kept the baby very warm. You did a great job. Well, that's a visualization exercise. And the reason I do it is just to give you an example of the pictures that your mind can create. Now, I'd like, again, some of you to just say, how did that work for you? What kind of things were you aware of during that little exercise we did? This closed-eye strategic planning that I will link back to business shortly. Any observations?
Yeah, I can feel the size of the baby, I can feel the warmth, I can feel the baby's skin.
Barry, the size of the baby, the warmth of the baby, could feel the baby's skin. Yeah. Anything else?
I visualised the same hospital that I always go to, and it was like memories from my past, so the pictures sitting there waiting.
Yeah. So you weaved a movie into another movie, which of course is what the brain is doing all the time. Yeah. Anything else?
I have a fear of heights, and I climbed the Sydney Harbour Bridge and some other things to help me get over it.
Okay, that's pretty good. And how were you able to do that with your fear of heights?
I think it was just a mind over matter. It's quite difficult going sort of straight off the bridge.
But you did it.
We were lucky we were sort of clamped on quite closely.
Okay.
But just looking straight out and focusing on the view. And
Yeah, well done. I like that one. And there was a lady here who had her hand up as well.
Yes, several years ago I went to New York for a presentation, and I called CNN, I got an interview and I got in, which is a big thing.
You had an interview with CNN and you got in?
I did it in like almost minutes.
Okay, so that must mean whatever you did worked well
Yeah.
there. And any other quick ones? Okay. Kathleen, please come up. Oh, now you're saying, I wish I'd kept my mouth shut. Yeah, okay. Give her a... Thanks, Kathleen. And I liked your story as well, but as you're going to find out in a moment, it wouldn't have been an appropriate one for what we're going to do now. Now I wish I had got you. Anyway, Kathleen. Okay, now I've used this with golfers, and I use this example now with every single client I work with. And it goes something like this. 40% of the brain, more or less, is visual. So I want to kind of close that bit of your brain off for a moment. So just close your eyes. You're quite safe here. And I want you to think back when you had that interview with CNN. And just nod when you've got there. Tell me. I want you to see what you saw in the room, the noises that you heard, how you felt, especially when they gave you the good news. Okay? Right. Now, Don't answer this question until, well, I want you to give me a nod and take your time until you're sure you've got the exact answer to the question. The exact question is, if you could describe all of those feelings in just one word, what would that word be? Don't tell me, just nod when you've got it. Good, thank you. Now, if that one word, whatever it might be, if that word had a color, what would the color be?
Red.
Red, okay. Open your eyes. Okay, Catalin, so let me go back. I asked you one word to describe that incredible feeling of success and whatever it might have been. What was that one word?
Made it.
Made it.
Kind of.
Hold on, I think I said one word, right? Okay, so how would you put that in one word? Oh, made it'll do. Made it, we made it. Yeah, made it. That's, yeah, we can call that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so this was the one word, made it, and the color was?
Red.
Right. I'm just doing what Ed said. You're never going to work unless you make them blink. Now, how could this possibly help you, Catalin, in the future, or any of you in this room, when you wanted to achieve something, when you wanted to be at peak performance?
Keep going back.
Keep going back to it. And keep going back specifically to the word and the color. So, made it. I tell you what, if, I don't know, don't answer this question, but let's just say you have a big project coming up. I would put on your screensaver the name of the project and underneath, made it. And what do you think letters, what color do you think I would use?
Oh, red, definitely.
Red. And I'd have Post-its all over the house with made it in big red letters. Do you think that might help?
Oh, it would bring back always that moment.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because you just created it this moment for me. It
Yeah.
wasn't like this in my memory.
Yeah.
Every now and then, maybe once
Yeah.
a year I remembered that day, but now it's something I have it.
You have it.
It's red and
Well done, Catalin. Thank you very much. And thank you all very much for sharing our experience and for volunteering your thoughts and demos and all the rest of it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I don't have any grandchildren until roughly October 17. So I'll definitely, unless something unexpected happens, I will definitely be around the rest of the day. So come to me at any time with your questions, and I'll be glad to tell you the kind of work I do and the courses I run and anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Steve. How many of you found that interesting? Yeah? Okay. How many of you can, Dr. Steve specializes in many things. One of the things is confidence, and he's one of the things that he's actually, he's got loads of titles, loads of books and stuff, but the Zen Golf, for example, but it's all based around confidence. How many of you could use any of those techniques and apply them in business? Yeah? Well, that's the great thing about NLP, that, bless you, more you, sorry. So that's the great thing about NLP, that basically any of these techniques can be applied to any and everything, and that's what this day is all about. So with your permission, Dr. Steve has a workshop which is called Zen Golf, but obviously, one of the main subjects he covers is confidence. So you'll be learning a number of techniques which are obviously aimed around confidence, which can be used and applied in many ways. It's on the 23rd of October. The normal price is $197, and the discounted price is $147, okay? That's till the 23rd of October. So with Richard and his trainings, because he does NLP, he also does DHE, Design Human Engineering, Neurohypnotic Repatterning. And one of the things that you get to learn is about, apart from the NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming, the techniques that we learn, it's also about, making cocktails with these emotions. I like, who of you like Michael McIntyre? Yeah, you know who I mean? Well, one of the ones I found hysterical is the mandrel. Have you seen that one with the mandrel? I love it, absolutely. I've got a mandrel. I've actually got 2 mandrels. But imagine in your mind, for a second, that you've got. I mean, for you who cook and you've got your own kitchen, maybe you want to keep it there. For you who have a shed, because that's the only place you're allowed to have a man drawer, imagine you've got an imaginary shed or you've got an imaginary drawer. And imagine in that drawer, or the selection of drawers, because you can have as many drawers as you want because it's in your head. Imagine you've got a drawer where you've got confidence. Just open it up. It's like a powder. Just go, get it. Just rub it all over yourself. Why not? It's your head. So get yourself a drawer. You've got a man drawer, you can have a confidence drawer.